Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Rob Howden and David Cole back again with one of our EKN Debrief podcasts, episode number 23, recording date May 8th, 2018. David and I back in the office, well, essentially mobile office and home office, after the Superkarts USA Pro Tour Spring Nationals at the Phoenix Kart Racing Association facility in Glendale, Arizona. It was a hot one. Lots to talk about in this edition of the debrief as David and I will break down all the action from the racetrack. We'll talk about some stuff that happened in the paddock. We'll just talk about the overall event because there's a lot to discuss in terms of the racing itself, the weather, number one, a couple of exciting, let's say, dirt devils that happened throughout the weekend. It was a wild one in Phoenix for sure as we got to the halfway point of the Superkarts USA Pro Tour. This week's show presented by the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy. If you want to improve your results, it's time for professional instruction and coaching at the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy. Located at the new state-of-the-art Speed Sports Racing Park just north of Houston, the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy offers custom coaching programs for newcomers and experienced racers alike. Train with a champion with over 30 years of racing experience to get proven results. Get ready for the big races by training with the best. Reserve your dates now by calling 866-607-RACE. 866-607-7223. All right, David, rough start there for me, man. I'm telling you, I was announced all weekend long in what? I want to say 106-degree temperatures, but it was more like 70 degrees or 68 degrees in the booth. We didn't get a lot of sympathy from anybody when we told them how cold we were up at the announcer's tower. But for you going in and out, stark contrast. We're talking probably somewhere around 40 degrees difference inside to outside.
I would give it a 50, probably a 50-degree difference, just because of the where the AC was coming down on you. And yeah, you only stepped out to go eat. That's the only time you stepped out of there,
or to warm up.
Yeah.
It was tough. I again, for everybody, you had obviously a lot more understanding of what it was like. I think that's the first thing as we start to break down the Spring Nationals. Extreme temperatures and conditions. Obviously, Phoenix, David, no humidity, but the sun was beating down all weekend long. We had a little cloud cover, I think, as you mentioned, on Sunday. But otherwise, man, we're talking, first and foremost, Sunday, a record high for May 6th ever in Phoenix at 106 degrees. And I think we saw 107 on a couple of the phones we were looking at. It was just unbelievably tough for these drivers.
And the cloud cover actually happened on Sunday when it was the hottest. So, explain that to me. I'm not a weather person. I'm not quite sure I understand that, but it did give you a bit of a sense of relief when the cloud cover did come over, because it felt like, oh, thank you. The sun rays weren't exactly slamming you, either your top of your head or your back of your legs or the back of the neck. It kind of gave a little bit of relief, but the temperature just was still hot because you're in the desert, you're in dirt, there's no grass. Sometimes when it's hot, the grass sometimes feel a little bit cooler, but you're in dirt and pavement, and the pavement's reaching anywhere up to 140 degrees. And so all the rays off the track and the pavement just bounce off that and hit you, and it's definitely a challenge.
Well, and think about the mechanics and everyone in the paddock as well. You're walking on that 140-degree pavement. We saw a couple of people post photos to Facebook of using the actual, the heat gun to find out what the track temp was. Ambient temperature 106, track temp at one point. I saw one that was 138. We expect over 140 by the time it really got hot at the end of the day. So really just the conditions were so trying, so challenging. And I think that's why you and I mentioned it on social media already. I mentioned it on the broadcast. We were just so impressed with the way people handled it because, early on there were thoughts, some people calling for shortening the races, whatever it may be. But I don't care if you were a 7, 8, or 9-year-old driver in micro, or if you were one of the 45-year of age and older guys in the master categories. Dude, they battled through full distance races, and we saw some guys turn in their fastest laps at the end of the races, having fought that hard in those tough of conditions. I was unbelievably impressed for sure.
Well, it's like marathon running. It basically is what it boiled down to, because by the end of the day, you're you're on that last, maybe mile or 2 mile to go in like a marathon, and you've gotten done with the swimming, you've gotten done with the biking. Now you're trying to complete that run. And so, you just, it's whoever came in trained and ready to be their best at the end. It's kind of like, a chassis setup. You got to get your body set up to be good at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think a triathlon is actually a really, really good example with the qualifying pre-final and final, right? I agree with that completely. We were talking to John Crow and Travis Irving a little bit after the race on Saturday, and John had all the drivers under the Musgrave Racing Company tent actually weighing themselves at the start of the day and throughout the day to make sure that they were getting enough fluid into them. John's really changed his focus in terms of being in better shape for racing this year, and it's obviously paying off. He's leading the way in the S4 Supermaster category. But I want to say he said he had lost about 4 pounds through Saturday. And I think Travis Irving had not got himself down. I think that the wear and tear and the weekend and losing weight from losing body fluid and actually, hydrating, I think he said he was down about 7 pounds from the start of the day to the end. So we're talking about the extremity of being an athlete in motorsports. And I think this particular weekend really challenged everyone.
Well, it's not like bowling or golf where you can just go out and do it and drink beer while you're doing it. I mean, it's a physically demanding sport. And I think Irving even said it on Sunday. He lost so much weight that he had to put weight on the cart, which is unreal for a guy like him.
He's 6'4". Like, how is he putting weight on? But he was able to make weight every weekend. He's lost a lot of weight. He's put a lot into it as well. Travis has, just like John Crow has. But you're right. That amount of weight loss throughout a day based on the fact that you're losing fluids and trying to keep up on it. And because, as John Crow said, you can't really keep up on that. You either have the weight or you don't have the weight or don't have the water in you. You can't, if you get thirsty on the weekend, you're already too far behind. You got to hydrate coming into the weekend. And I think there were some guys that did a better job than others. Overall, Dave, as we give the overall overview for the weekend, second event of the Pro Tour in the books. We get past the halfway point, rounds 3 and 4. Some of the championships definitely heating up, but there's some as well that we've just had drivers stretch away. We'll talk more about it in the race report, but there are a handful of guys that really have taken control of their specific categories. There
are, and one thing we kind of missed in our notes there, because we don't have it we can talk about it more in the paddock pass, but it was the dust devil that ripped through the paddock.
Yeah, true. I guess
that was one of the major weather issues we had, aside from the actual heat, was Saturday. And I think a lot of people saw the video that we posted and all the other photos that people put up. But it's not something we're not unfamiliar with when we go to Phoenix, because we see a lot of the little dust devils that stir up around the oval racetrack that's south of where we are, that we're looking out from the tower. And so we see them. This thing was like a wall of just wind and dirt that came ripping through the paddock.
It was never that big. Never that big before, though, Dave. Oh, my God. Like, you and I were up in the tower, and all of a sudden we just saw the dust come up through the paddock side. It's hard. We can't really see the paddock very well from where we are. We saw the dust come up, and all of a sudden the K1 speed tent that they had just set up that morning to promote the local K1 speed track. All of a sudden, it was 100 feet in the air, swirling all around. The Coates family, dad and son, were out in the middle of the racetrack. It's the tent swirling around them. And actually, I think hit dad, like David. I'm like, oh my God. It was massive. And I think the severity of it, Dave, was when we saw it actually taking tires from the tire wall and throwing them around too.
Yeah, it just lingered there. It wasn't like a quick blow through. It just kind of like that, the Twister movie where the tornado just kind of sat there and kind of teased you a little bit, like, hey, don't mess with me, man. And like you said, threw those tires around, knocked down a couple of the poles they had set up for the camera marshaling system. And just kind of moved off to the west and just kind of sat there. I think it died across the golf course that's back over that way. So it's just a very rare and unique thing that we saw. And luckily, thankfully, like you said, only David and Alec were on racetrack.
Yeah.
No, there were no carts out there, because it could have caused serious damage to not only carts but to drivers out there.
Yeah, with David Alec out there again, we're all yelling, "Get out of the way!" They obviously can't hear us in the tower. We're thrilled that they were able to get through that because it was very close. And David even said, "Had it nailed him in the head, he knows it could have been much, much worse." He took it just one of the legs of the easy up, tapped him in the back of hit him hard. Didn't break anything, but hit him in the back of the one ankle. I think everybody was really lucky. There was a lot of damage in the paddock, the Musgrave, and let's say it this way: the path that it blew through. If you were 5 feet one direction, you hardly felt anything, but it blew right past the guys at Formula Works. Tony Saragusa told me that he got just pelted with rocks. It went right through the Musgrave tent and ripped up all their awnings. And it was cool to see everybody in the paddock kind of to jump in to help the guys that were affected by it. I know Tom Kutcher was out there helping the Musgrave guys get their tents back together. Everybody kind of, we took an hour break while everybody kind of pitched in to try to get the paddock back together.
Yeah, that's the good camaraderie we have within the sport. People have a hard time, and we've seen a lot of medical issues with people, this and that, and even in the paddock, if somebody needs help, engine's not starting, or somebody's hurt, or in this case, some damage has been done to some people's tents and trailers and this, and people will step up. Like we saw, a few years ago with the fire in Dallas, a lot of people were willing to just help out however they could with fire extinguishers and getting as much stuff out of their trailer as they possibly could to save it. But that's a good thing that we have within the sport is the camaraderie.
To cap off our notes on the extreme temperatures and conditions that we had in Phoenix, mostly everybody survived throughout the weekend with no major health issues. We were very worried about people getting heat stroke, and from at least what we've been told, David, really no major health issues with those that were in the paddock.
No, we had a couple injuries on track,
Yep.
But off the track, I think we had a couple people that were succumbed to the heat a little bit, but once they got fluids in them, everybody was okay.
Let's look at numbers, David. Obviously, when we look at the fact that the Spring Nationals, a change in venue from Sonoma to Phoenix in the late going, numbers actually fell down quite a bit, down to 184 total numbers. Still some great, 43 in X30 Junior, 40 in X30 Senior, a little bit of a drop in some of the other classes. Overall, I think the venue move was one of the big things. I think a lot of people were planning on taking their wives and families maybe to Sonoma, and Phoenix didn't have the same draw in terms of that. I also think that the really poor racecraft that we saw at NOLA probably turned a couple of people away as well. Just like, we're not going to come back racing until we see that the competition is a little cleaner. And then I think the other big one is in the stock Honda categories. There's still a lot of uncertainty with what's going on, and there's some people that are staying home right now. Let's have a look at the numbers a little bit, and you can kind of break down where we saw ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean it's down. Overall, you look at it from the winter nats, it was down maybe anywhere between 30 and 40 drivers, and like you said, the venue move definitely could have been a reason. Poor racecraft, which we saw in X30 Junior, only really dropped seven drivers. They still had 43 drivers there in Phoenix, so not so much there. It was just kind of the other categories, like you said, the Honda situation that we've seen where S4 dropped down to 6 and S2 dropped down to 11. So that's where we're kind of losing some numbers. X30 Master dropped down from 23 to 17. X30 Senior was still good at 40, but still lost a 4 from NOLA.
Really just Micro Swift was up 1, but you said Mini down 4, X30 Junior down 7, 6 for X30 Master, 4 for Senior, 1 for Supermaster and S4. 4 just was kind of like every class except S1 was the same at 14 drivers and some exciting racing, but just a little bit down each. Where when you think about it being consistent, then you can go, I think, a lot more to the venue change. Just people saying, hey, you know what? I don't want to race at Phoenix because I know it's going to be hot. And it was, no doubt.
Yeah, it was more, not so much the racetrack, more so the weather. And knowing that the conditions were going to be the way that they were.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, a night race would have been awesome. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, practice Thursday night, race Friday night and Saturday night would have been super cool. I'm sure that SCUSA has that in the notebook if they ever decide they're going to go back there again, because once we got by the high heat of around 4 or 5 o'clock, it was absolutely beautiful there, right? It was 70, 80, 75. Everybody's super comfortable. I think a night race would have been really cool. There you go, folks. That's your overview of the SCUSA Pro 2 here on episode number 23 of our EKN Debrief. David and I, after this break, are going to come back, and we're going to go paddock pass. We'll talk a little bit about more that happened overall with the weekend before we head right into the race report. Stick with us. More to come here on the EKN Radio Network.
History, success, family. Those are the 3 words that describe Comet Kart Sales, one of the longest tenured karting businesses in the United States. The family-owned operation is located just outside of Indianapolis, and they have provided karts, parts, and services for thousands of racers throughout their near 6 decades of business. Comet's online store features everything you need, continually adding new parts to their product line. Comet Kart Sales attends dozens of karting events every year, offering trackside service for racers and families. Karting veterans Mark Dismore Jr. and Gary Lawson provide one-on-one driver coaching and tuning assistance for each trackside customer. The engine building business, Comet Racing Engines, has won countless major events and championships over decades of karting, and they continue to offer the best trackside service in the industry. Make sure you head to CometKartSales.com or call them at 317-462-3413 to be a part of the Comet Kart Sales family today.
Welcome back to episode number 23 of the EKN Debrief. David Cole and I breaking down the most recent SuperKarts USA Pro Tour race, last weekend's Spring Nationals in Phoenix. Now we're going to move to the Paddock Pass, presented by CRG Nordam. If you want to drive the best, drive a CRG. After years of independent American importers, CRG Nordam is now managed directly by the factory and run out of their state-of-the-art headquarters in Texas. CRG Nordam is the American arm of the CRG factory in Italy, and they're serious about success. If you're ready to step up to the national level, do it with a factory race team that competes across the USA. CRG Nordam is a full factory effort with the best personnel and the finest equipment. We're serious about winning, and you should be too. David, into the Paddock Pass now. I think, off the top of the broadcast, our EKN live shows, you and I talked about immediately. Let's talk about one of the key things right now, and that's the pushback bumper. SCUSA debuted it for the first time in the IAME categories, and I think you'll agree with me, first and foremost, the starts were much better than they were at NOLA.
Well, that's kind of been the synopsis of this pushback bumper, is that it really reduces the type of impacts that we normally saw without it. Now, are we still getting overzealous drivers? Of course. We saw that a number of times in X30 Junior, X30 Senior. Not so much in Master, Micro, maybe more so in Mini, I think, this weekend than we saw in NOLA. Just a lot of guys just trying things that they shouldn't try. And not only that, it was almost like the accordion effect, where guys just didn't really understand how they needed to slow up and give each other space under braking in the opening corner. So we saw a lot of that, just guys climbing over other guys.
And as I said throughout the broadcast, it's going to take time for people to understand, those who have not used the pushback before, what they can and cannot do, how to change their approach. And remember, over the last 4 years, since it's been getting a little more rougher at the starts of these Pro Tour races and at the Super Nationals as well, that's just what's ingrained in these guys' heads. There's some guys that have only been racing, SCUSA Pro Tour racing for the last 4 years, and that's what you've done. You've driven as hard as you could into the corner. You've hit the guy in front of you, and ideally, if you're lucky, things will open up and you'll be able to get out of the corner cleanly. We're going to have to change that mindset, and that's why I keep using the term changing the culture. They're going to have to change the current status quo of how they think they approach the corners. And I think that you can see it start to figure it out, because, they changed the SuperKarts USA layout not to have the double hairpins, or at least a single hairpin at the start. Well, what's Phoenix? You start on a long straightaway, you're in a banked hairpin, and then you're in an off-camber hairpin. So there's the two hairpins that get that really stack everybody up again. I personally think that this weekend was a lot better, and I think it was even better come Sunday for the most part.
Yeah, and again, the Phoenix track is a little bit tighter than some of the other tracks we go to, like Newcastle and NOLA. So with these larger fields, it's very hard to find room. But it also, again, like you said, it's just getting drivers to understand their limits. A lot of them just still aren't quite there yet, even though they're at the national level. You should, but they're just not quite there. And from now, I think this is what my fifth event with a pushback bumper, if you count all the USBKS races I've been to now. It seems to be like guys are starting to figure out where they can hit their front bumpers and where they can't hit their front bumpers on a guy. It seems like, the rear bumpers are, give a little bit of a cushion if you're doing like a bump draft type scenario, to where that's where the accordion effect kind of came in, where guys were just, still kind of hitting in the back of other guys, but directly in that center area where it's softer. But if you hit, say, right behind one of the rear frame mounting areas, that's where you're kind of getting that more of an impact and pushing the front nose in onto the pushback. So I think guys are kind of learning that a little bit more. So necessarily on the starts, guys are like, well, as long as I don't hit them here, I'll be all right. If I can hit them here, I can still kind of move them out of the way and try and get through. So it's just something that I'm going to be definitely watching, I think, a little bit more, because I saw a lot of onboard videos where guys were still just plowing the back of the cart in front of them, and nothing happens.
Well, and David, SCUSA did one thing. They only penalized if it was a full pushback activation in terms of both sides of the pushback bumper. If it was just one, they let it go. Now, maybe they'll elect to change that a bit and have a smaller penalty if you have just the one side, not the other side. Now, I know you came up with a list here of, in each race, how many pushbacks were presented, and some, I think you have some data as well on guys that impeded in qualifying runs. Micro, pretty clean. Really just one pushback bumper penalty in the pre-final on Saturday. What else did you see in terms of impeding penalties with drivers coming out slow during qualifying and putting around slow? It's an epidemic we've seen over the last couple of years. You got that for some of the penalties, and then you got some pushback. Junior, not surprising, the highest numbers.
Yeah, Junior had both 7 on the pre-final both days and 3 in the final on both days. So that class had the most out of the 5 IAME classes, had the most pushback bumper penalties. Now, it was the largest field, but it doesn't necessarily mean they should have more, because like you said, you look at micro, they only had 1, where Masters had 4 overall on the weekend. So yeah,
Masters was all in one race too, though.
In one race, and again, they had the similar numbers. So it's just kind of goes into different scenarios throughout what happens in a race. The pre-finals, obviously, for the juniors, seems to be one of the biggest issues, and guys who don't quite get where they want to be in qualifying, so they think they're going to do it in the pre-final. Well, it obviously is showing with a pushback bumper, 7 in both pre-finals. Guys are taking a lot of chances and not so much in the final. But again, I think there are a lot of DNFs in the finals. There's just not a lot of pushback bumper penalties.
Yeah, understood. I am happy that SCUSA cracked down a bit on the qualifying impeding. That's something that really, really irks me when guys come out late off. You'll get guys that'll go out when the green goes. They're laying their fast laps down, and then the guys come out on the racetrack who want to be cool and hang out in the paddock or hang out in the pit lane, then come out to try to set that big lap at the end. Well, they drive slowly around for like a lap and a half, and they're constantly getting in the way of a guy on a flyer. And my opinion is, you impede somebody, you lose your 2 fast laps. Or say either do that or say get up to speed when you come out, or you're done. Because it's just on a track like Phoenix 2, which is so narrow, it's almost impossible to get out of the way. We saw one particular impeding penalty. I'm not sure if it was even a penalty, but 2 drivers were slow all the way down the back straightaway and drove right down the racing line at quarter speed coming through the hairpin Daytona at the end of the straightaway. And one driver was totally balked on a fast lap. For me, you got to leave the grid immediately. The only other way to do it would be to say, hey, you got 30 seconds to leave the grid, and then we're closing the grid. I think, David, that would do it. Get on the racetrack and get your qualifying underway.
Yeah, I think they have some procedural things they need to look at for letting the carts leave the grid during qualifying. Some tracks, obviously, it's easier than others. This one's a little bit more difficult as you're coming onto the racetrack as the carts are going through turn 1 to set up for turn 2. And so you got the kind of the right, left, right combination S's that we know is very tricky. And there's really no way to get it out of the way other than to flat out take off and get away from them as quick as you can. And there wasn't an official there kind of flagging guys when to go, when not to go. And it was kind of racers doing it on their own. And a lot of times you can't trust a racer to judge where he should go out on the racetrack and when he should not go out on the racetrack.
I agree with you on that. They should have had an official there, right there, and saying, because we were wondering if I can't remember, there was a couple drivers at the very end that were like, they may get stuck there till the minute to go, because there was no real clear opportunity for them to go out there because there was already 35 carts on the track. So I just think a couple of minor things can be adjusted there to stop that tomfoolery. I don't like it. I think it ruins people's weekends because we know qualifying 25th is different than qualifying 10th or 15th. I don't like seeing guys lose their fast laps. Overall, Dave, though, I know that you mentioned as well, we talked about the fact that I think the SCUSA potentially relying a little too much on the SCUSA app to inform drivers of penalties and everybody of penalties, especially this weekend when everybody really struggled for cell service at the racetrack.
Yeah, so it was at Denola same way too, where guys were not notified of being penalized. Either whether it be an on-track situation, and this weekend even in tech, guys weren't notified of certain penalties they received, and I think that the organization is relying too much on the app. I think there still needs to be that kind of paper trail with a penalty. And a public notification on some board. I know they had results posted somewhere, but I really think there should be a penalty board at every race. A penalty board is a great way to just show everybody, hey, these are the penalties we are handing out this weekend. And
it tells everybody. You're right. Agreed.
It's a much easier way to do it rather than through the app where you got to scroll down and you got to refresh and check all the time, to where if you are handed a paper, if you say you had not so much the bumper penalty, but I'm talking like a jump start. You get a paper that says you jump start. Okay, then you have something that you can go to the officials and try to protest if you want to, or at least you got the penalty, or a passing, like a contact, avoidable contact. A lot of times, if you're not given a paper, you might be told, but saying one thing and getting the actual paper and having the proof to go in and discuss it is another thing. I just love the paper idea where one paper goes up on this board and the other paper goes to you. It's not something we have to keep. You have to keep as in the officials. You take it down, you recycle it at the end of the year or at the end of the weekend, but it's just a great it's a poster board that it has to be on display for everybody to see.
Yeah, first and foremost, it tells the driver what they've done, and they're aware of it. And number two, it lets the paddock realize the penalties are being laid down, because we don't hear they didn't make any calls all weekend. It was BS. Well, here's your board of all the calls that were made. Here's the penalties, so everybody knows. I agree with that totally. David Cole and I right in the middle of our Paddock Pass presented by CRG Nordam. Again, episode number 23 of the EKN Debrief as we break down the Superkarts USA Spring Nationals. David, for the most part, some pretty impressive racing on track. We talked about the starts being better because of the pushback bumper. I personally think that the racing was good. There were incidents on the racetrack where drivers made maybe low percentage moves, but I don't think we could ever complain about a low percentage move as long as it was one that was, could have worked. We saw guys make passes in particular corners and they just didn't pull the trigger and get it done right. That's racing. It happens at every level. Guys will make moves that just don't work. So we saw that. But for the most part, David, I thought the racing was really good at Phoenix. I think that track race as well. There's at least 4 or 5 places to pass, a couple better than others, but overall, some great racing.
I think it would have been better with a lower temperature throughout the weekend. To be honest, I think I've seen some better racing at the facility. Like you said, it was good, but I think it would have been more dramatic. I think if the temperatures were a lot lower, because it was a very tire conservative weekend where guys, the tires were just getting shredded to bits every lap you made. So I think it was more of a conservation type mode where who could handle their tires a lot better than the others would be able to shine at the end of the day. And so it was, obviously with the weather, it threw a different element in there that we're not used to when we go to Phoenix a lot of times. So, but again, like you were talking about low percentage moves, there's just one, you can't eliminate that. There's always going to be people that they're going to push the edge. You got to push the edge. I mean, we see it in tech. Yeah. We see it in tech. Guys are going to push the envelope, Well,
you see it everywhere. Yeah, you see it everywhere. We're in the month of May. Look at the pass that Takuma Sato tried to make on Dario Franchitti to win the Indy 500 a couple of years ago. You're going to make a move. If there's an opportunity, you try it. And sometimes it's just not going to work. And so I never want to downplay that as being aggressive racing. Yeah, it's avoidable contact and you may get a penalty, but you're making it. That's not one that I've been saying, hey, that's a BS move. You're making a move to try to make that pass. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And so that, and SCUSA officials, I think, did a pretty good job handing out enough avoidable contact penalties for what they've been able to be able to see. I think they're getting a really better handle on the video marshaling system now as well.
I do. And obviously having the 4 marshals up on the towers, looking down at everything, they obviously up in the air have a better viewpoint of how carts are entering corners and exit points and this and that. So it takes time. I mean, they started doing this just last year. It takes time to get adjusted to it and to kind of better communicate and have more chemistry. I mean, it's just like anything else. The officials have to have a bit of chemistry as well in order to understand what certain people are looking at and how they're looking at it.
I think one of the things too, David, is, and I think we never really talked about this, is the fact that, number one, when they first brought the video marshaling system out, there was so much stuff happening on track because the racing was so poor that they couldn't even they were trying to learn the system, but keep up with countless penalties and investigations. The racing's gotten better. They've gotten better. So everything is working better simply because of the fact that they're not having to try to catch up to all the craziness that's happening on the racetrack.
Yeah. And like you said, the main point is drivers are starting to drive better, more with their heads on.
Yeah, agreed. One last thing to cap off this paddock pass. Let's give some props out to Rawls and Performance Group. What a weekend for them, David. Major wins, podiums, 6 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. Pedro Lopez gets a couple of wins and leads the points in S2. His brother Paulo wins on Saturday, runner-up on Sunday in X30 Master. Kyle Wick scoring his first ever S1 victory on Saturday, podium on Sunday. They had a pretty solid weekend getting some hardware at RPG.
Yeah, they're not just a tag team anymore. I mean, they are a full-fledged, full-service operation. Tag, shifter, cadet, junior, senior, master, any level, any type of program that you're looking to do better at. Obviously, I think RPG is kind of the leader of the pack right now in terms of teams around the nation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, more to come. We have our race report on the other side of this break. Stick with us. Episode number 23 of the EKN Debrief. Like most everything else, karting has always been big in Texas. But these days, it's just getting better and better. Top quality facilities and tracks, truly among the best in the country, dedicated kart shops, and a pure SuperKarts USA regional series with absolutely incredible year-end prizes. That's right, it's the Texas Pro Kart Challenge. The series is dedicated to offering the best program possible, with a national-level officiating and technical staff, top-quality facilities, exciting prizes, and full e-karting news trackside live coverage with play-by-play by me, Rob Howden. Our next race is set for June 7th, 8th, and 9th. So make sure to mark it on your schedule. We are going night racing at the iconic Denton facility. Yep, it's PKC Texas style under the lights. It's the best racing in Texas, so come challenge yourself and push it to the next level. For more information, visit TexasProKartChallenge.com. Welcome back to the EKN Debrief. Rob Howden and David Cole here, breaking down the most recent SuperKarts USA Pro Tour event, the Spring Nationals in Phoenix. On to the race report, presented by K1 Race Gear. Since 2003, K1 Race Gear has been a one-stop shop for all your indoor and outdoor karting needs. From racing shoes, suits, and driving gloves to chest protectors, rib vests, accessories, and bags, K1 Race Gear provides quality karting products for the enthusiast and the professional alike. Visit K1RaceGear.com today and get everything you need for your next racing outing. All right, DC, about 20 minutes before we rock things down, let's go to X30 Senior. 4 different winners on the season.
It's crazy. Obviously the X30 division is probably the best to watch, and it's got a lot of experience, but also a lot of youth. And we saw kind of a mixture of both, especially this weekend. Seeing Norberg coming out as a winner for the 3rd time at the Spring Nats, 2-time defending champion, winning once again at the Spring Nationals Saturday. Great performance. Jake Craig, Samuel Lupien joining him on the podium. But it was youth who was able to shine on Sunday, with Dante Yu finally scoring his first Pro Tour victory, able to outrun Craig and Norberg. So again, kind of just, both those two guys kind of solidified themselves in the championship chase. And again, it's kind of that, like I said earlier, we're managing your tires. Nobody's better right now than Craig or Norberg in this division.
S1, very similar, David. 4 different winners on the season. As we already said, Rollison Performance Group's Kyle Wick dominated the day on Saturday. Unbelievably impressive just to see how he handled so many great drivers. And here he is, a rookie essentially in S1, having made his debut last year at the Super Nationals. And Kyle was just strong all weekend. Dominates the day on Saturday, gets that first Pro Tour win. Rory Vanderstuur, another rookie in the S1 categories, puts 2 freshmen on the podium. And then Nick Leduc was in 3rd. Leduc, a great story, of course, coming down in his pickup truck. He pitted under a team tent, but essentially handled everything himself, did all the tuning himself with one of his buddies. Really cool privateer story, essentially. He came back the next day after the 3rd on Saturday and scores the win on Sunday, repeating as a Spring Nats winner, having scored the victory last year in Sonoma. Billy Musgrave was the top qualifier and won the pre-final, but he dropped back to 6th in the main event. Vanderstuur and Wick, those 2 rookies, again, completing the podium on Sunday in the S1 Pro Stock Honda class. Just, again, a good mix of veteran drivers and some young guys out of S2 who have really stepped up their game. Speaking of S2, not 4 different winners, David, just 1. Pedro Lopez has won every S2 race this year.
Yeah. I was just going to mention on S1, what is it with pickup trucks on carts? Guys winning in S1 at the top level class out of the back of their pickup trucks. So, props.
Yeah, AJ Myers back at the Summer Nationals,
yeah,
right?
Definitely. So I just want to say that. But yeah, Lopez, he first year in S2, first year shifting gears. We've seen him in X30 Junior for the last couple of years. That SCUSA Winter Series, I think, definitely helped him kind of get into his groove, and he's definitely showing it on the Pro Tour. Able to win on Saturday, earning maximum points, winning over Michael Alavia and Cameron Egger. Sunday, Alavia was the top guy. Lopez gave it to him back on the pre-final. Contact kind of dropped Alavia back, but Max Hewitt then jumped out to the lead in the final. But Lopez ran him down, slipped by him in the last couple of laps to steal the victory, or steal the lead and the win, earning his 4th victory of the year. Hewitt actually came across the scales underweight, so he was relinquished from the 2nd spot, moved Blair Hosey up to 2nd, and Kwan Tandon up to 3rd.
Yeah, good run for Keon Tandon to the 3rd spot, as you said, for DRT Racing. Tough one for Max Hewitt. He had won at the Texas Pro Kart Challenge opener and essentially his debut victory in the S2 class. He ran really well, though. I was so surprised that Lopez was able to close up at the end of that race. It was a wild one, but for him, 4 straight wins, one of those guys that really probably has a handle on the championship right now. He doesn't have to do much at the Summer Nats to be able to bring that title to Rolison Performance Group. Let's cap off this first little bit of the race report presented by K1 Race Gear with X30 Jr. Not much you can say, David, about this progression of Arias Dukmedjian. Running in the SCUSA Pro Tour with Greg Bell on leading edge. Wow, this kid, it just the racing up front in the X30 Junior was aggressive, but it was clean up front. Just some very impressive drivers. You got Tyler Maxson and Tyler Gonzalez on the pole as well. I mean, on the podium as well. Race 2, it was Jonathan Ports, who was unbelievably fast all weekend. He and Jeremy Fairburn on the podium. But Arias Dukmedjian just looks so composed. Nothing fazed him on the weekend. He has really just come on. I'm sure you're just as impressed with him as I am.
Yeah, he's been around for a couple years now, so it's kind of no surprise. But I think the surprise is more his consistency. It's not something that you can kind of just grab and go. But this weekend he certainly had it. He kind of was there in NOLA. Contact, I believe, on one day kind of took him out. So on the podium one day and then DNF on the other, I believe. But he definitely showed poise, composure, and a lot of speed in Phoenix.
I like the word consistency because that I think something that any young driver. Let me just single out Arias, but any young driver needs to work on consistency, right? Always being in there, trying not to make that bad move. And the overtakes that he made, of course, getting the lead late in race 1 to be able to win over Tyler Maxson was just super impressive. Just made that move, aggressive, decisive, and took 2 wins. Like, again, you can't say too much about it. He's turned himself into one of the top young junior drivers in the country, which is impressive. I do want to give props out to Canadian Matt Clark as well, who was running with PSL Karting. His dad, Stu, on the wrenches. Kind of made his entrance onto the U.S. national scene. 4th on Saturday, was 5th on Sunday before a penalty from a driver in front of him moved him back and moved Mac back up into 4th. A pair of 4th place finishes. Pretty solid debut for the young Canadian. All right, we got, another probably 5 categories to hit here in the race report. Stick with us. More to come after this break.
It is back. The Quincy Grand Prix of Karting. The crown jewel of karting returns to Quincy South Park for the first time since 2001. Race on the track where Jamie McMurray, Scott Pruitt, and Lynn Haddock ran. They'll tell you it's the greatest street racing track ever. All new pavement and smooth as glass. It will be a karting party you'll want to be part of. It's also the first leg of the Triple Crown of Karting. This race has to be on your bucket list. Come race before 10,000 plus spectators in Quincy's scenic South Park. Drivers' entry forms and all the information you'll need for the race held June 9th and 10th are online at www.quincygrandprix.com. That's quincygrandprix.com. Get online today, secure your spot, and then get ready to be part of one of the biggest races in karting history. It's the Grand Prix of Karting on June 9th and 10th in Quincy, Illinois' historic South Park.
Welcome back to the EKN Debrief. This is the race report from the SCUSA Spring Nationals in Phoenix. David, I'm going to jump right in here to S4 Pro Stock Honda. Jordan Musser had some bad luck at NOLA Motorsports Park, having that bumper fall off. He ends up having to leave the race while leading. He flat dominated the weekend here. National number 1 on the side of the PSL. Curtis Fox turning the wrenches. He was just perfect all weekend long. Ryan Kinnear was right there close both days. But to be honest, you got to say that Musser was just the man to beat. Kinnear kept pushing him, but the bottom line is Musser just was untouchable.
Yeah, I thought on Sunday it looked like Kinnear kind of had the speed there to make it a battle, to make it something a little bit more exciting at the end on Sunday. But yeah, Musser just kind of, we talk consistency. Musser just kept the consistent laps going. Kinnear kind of fell off a little bit at the end, and once you lose that draft, it's tough to get it back. So Musser was able to pull away from Kinnear to go sweep the weekend.
Yeah, trying to defend that national number 1. Musser wins both races. Kinnear second in both to keep things close. It's all going to come down to the Summer Nationals at Newcastle in in August. On Saturday, P3 went to Nathan Stewart, the Dallas Karting Complex driver on the Sodi kart, had a really strong run, actually pushed Kinnear for a while there. It was right on the rear bumper. And on Sunday, it was actually Terry Lawrence, who was running with Greg Bell and Leading Edge Motorsports on the Formula K on the weekend. Kind of got a better feel for the chassis by the time the weekend was all over. And Lawrence able to bring that kart home in third rung on the podium for the Sunday event. Supermaster.
Where's Stewart from again?
New Zealand. He's a Kiwi.
There it is.
I know.
There it is. All right.
I
just want to get it in your head so you don't forget anymore.
I apologize to his parents for saying that he's from Australia. I know that's a major no-no. Thanks, David. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
S4 Supermaster running on track at the same time. And David, what do you want to say about John Crow right now? He was the fastest driver in both groups. He turned the outright fastest lap, untouched all weekend, second and third wins of the year. He got bonus points for fast laps. John Crow just recommitted to what he's doing, and he wants to win this championship.
Bring it on down to Podiumville.
There it is, the Crow Show. Rod Clenard was just as fast. Give it up for Rod. Able to stick with John for a majority of the racing. Made one push to try to get the race win, I think, on Sunday, but just couldn't quite do it, but still finished second both days. Very similar to S4, who had the same winner and the same second-place driver. On Sunday, Victor Jimenez, it was P3, or rather on Saturday. On Sunday, Nick Firestone, local driver, able to come home with that final podium position. X30 Masters, David, this class has just got such a stacked field. You bring Leonardo Nienkotter into the game this year. You bring Matt Johnson out this weekend. Talk a little bit about how Paulo Lopez got his first victory on Saturday, but how things really kind of developed in that class.
Yeah, there's a lot of good names, good drivers that are in this category. And it's kind of it's a shock to see how well Paulo Lopez is. Obviously, we haven't seen him a lot. So to be able to battle with the likes of Leonardo Nienkotter and Derek Wang and Travis Irving and Jess Peterson, guys who have won or have been on the podium throughout the last couple of years at the Pro Tour. So for Lopez to come in and do what he's doing is great because, one, he's got 4 straight podium results, counting NOLA and this weekend. This weekend, though, his first victory, able to edge out Nienkotter on Saturday with Irving trailing in third. Nienkotter looked to be the guy to beat all weekend long, but in the end, it was Lopez on Saturday coming through with the victory. Sunday, a different story. The start of the final was a little bit shaky. Nienkotter got shuffled back to, I think, 7th at one point. So this allowed Lopez to kind of take over at the point, and then Matt Johnson trailed him. And we know Matt for a long, long time. When he's on the hunt, he's gonna go after it, and he just sat there, kind of bought his time. Again, tire management. I think he just kind of was able to manage his tires a little bit better than Lopez was, and then in the end, Johnson had the pace to get by him and hold on for his first Pro Tour victory in the X30 Master category. Lopez.
Yeah, Matt Johnson, he's a bulldog for sure, David. You give him you give him that opportunity to win a race. He's putting the head down and going to keep digging. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, Lopez was able to score second. So again, 4 straight podium results on the year. So that definitely puts him in the hunt for the title. Not quite sure who's going to fall in as a challenger position, but again, like we saw last year, the Summer Nats could be a deciding factor if you're able to sweep the whole weekend, as Laurentiu Mardan did to move up into second in the standings. But Nienkotter completed the podium. One interesting note, though, Derek Wang, 2-time defending champion, he had the fast lap of the race in both main events, but just wasn't quite fast enough or able to stay up towards the leaders early on throughout the race. But a top 5 finish, I believe, on Sunday was his best result of the weekend. But he scored 10 bonus points each day as a fast lap driver.
You and I talked a lot about the importance of getting those, those fast lap bonuses or just the bonus points. We talked about Max Garcia winning all the bonus points all weekend long in the micro Swift category, and indeed, and same thing in X30 Masters. It just seemed like Derek Wang wasn't able to qualify well. And with the level of talent in that class, if you're not qualifying well, it's hard to move forward because there's just so many great guys up front. Let's jump into the mini Swift class. Defending champion Carson Morgan really kind of ran things on Saturday, scoring his second victory of the season. There was some great racing up front, but he scores the win in the pre-final and the main event, running the Kart Republic. First time on that Kart Republic mini chassis. Kai Sorensen and Noah Baker on the podium as well. And David, Mini Swift, a huge field. We've seen some kind of tough racing in there, but for the most part, I'm loving the depth of talent there as well. You can go back top 15, top 20 and see some really good drivers.
Yeah, I think what was the total we had? We had 29. And I could probably say there's a good 15 to 20 drivers that could compete for the podium. So the field was really deep this weekend. And obviously when the field is deep like that, you got to go, it's tough to get any space you possibly can. And unfortunately for Morgan, qualified mid-pack on Sunday, and it kind of bit him in the end.
Yeah, the opening lap, they are all kind of rolling. I think it was the opening lap, right? They were all rolling through turn number last corner, coming out of the front straightaway. Guys were left and right. He got up on the back of a guy right here at start finish and kind of climbed over top of him and flipped. And it was one of those kind of big lazy flips that you kind of slap him down on the other side. Hard flip. He immediately got right back up, and obviously he was annoyed. Took the neck protector off and threw it on the ground. And as he walked across the track, everybody was able to get by. I think that he realized that he probably was hurt a little bit. The impact kind of hit his nose. I think he's got a broken nose. We saw pictures of him later on with Frankie Mossman, who had gotten into an incident as well. Both of those guys at the hospital giving us the thumbs up. So really happy to see that Carson and Frankie, of course, are fine as well. Frankie with a broken wrist from his incident. Overall, though, it kind of changes things around, but we're glad that Carson's fine.
Yeah, it was good. It was, like you said, it was good to see him get up right away. And thankfully, the SCUSA staff was right there to kind of assist him off the racetrack and tend to his need. But back on track, it was kind of it was a 4-driver breakaway in the main event that we saw basically decided in the last couple of corners. I think you said it on the mic a couple of laps before that with Noah Baker running fourth. You said fourth wasn't where you want to be, was it?
That's right. No, I'm like, you got to get to second if you want to win this thing, dude. You can't be fourth. And he just didn't have what it took to be able to get up there because everybody was so evenly matched. Jack Jeffers was leading for a bit, then Kai Sorensen would lead, then all of a sudden Diego LaRocque would lead, and Noah Baker was just standing back there in fourth. And I understand that for the mid part of the race, he was watching it. But David described that last lap, but the last corner, or not the second last corner, the off-camber turn number 11. Wow, that was big.
Well, when you're going into Daytona, you're sizing up a guy, especially if he goes down and low to defend, which I believe Sorensen was doing. Him and LaRocque were kind of going back and forth on that in the last couple of corners. So they go into turn 11. LaRocque dives underneath Sorensen. They both kind of drift wide, and it wasn't hard contact, but it was just enough contact to where it slowed their pace down. And Jeffers, who's running in third, didn't quite time it just right to get underneath both of them. And so his pace kind of slowed down where Baker just said, all right, guys, I'll just slide on by, and goes from fourth to first just in one corner and reaches the checker flag first.
Was it Sorensen that was leading into the final corner? I want to say it was LaRocque, because I have a feeling that LaRocque was leading the final lap, and he ended up not even being on the podium. Regardless of which way it shook down, you're exactly right. Baker, perfect, checked up, tucked down to the inside, and I couldn't believe it when he came out. Immediately, I was eating my words. I'm like, no, fourth was the perfect place to be for Noah Baker. He ends up scoring a big win. Jack Jeffers in second, Kai Sorensen in third, Diego LaRocque, who led so much of that race and was strong, ends up P4. Micro Swift, let's cap off this race report. Caleb Gaffera with a big win, his second win of the season. He is victorious on Saturday over Danny Dzelski and Max Garcia. All three of them were just battling like crazy. Ben Mayer was in there as well, but fell back a little bit. Good run for Gaffera, able to score the win as Dzelski not able to get by. But on Sunday, David, Ben Mayer was just impressive.
He was able to bounce back. Obviously not missing the podium on Saturday probably kind of amped him up a little bit more on Sunday. And, Sunday just Mayer, again, he had the streak going. Needed to keep the streak going now with 8 events now that he's scored a victory at, whether both days or just one day. So
that's awesome.
So he got his second win on the Pro Tour. So we got Gaffar with 2, Mayer with 2, but don't forget about Garcia. Garcia finished second. So he's got I want to say at least 3 podiums, maybe 4. I got to double check that. But he was able to come across second. Ethan Ayers with another podium in third. But Garcia scoring 40 bonus points on the weekend with both top qualifying awards and both fast lap awards.
That's pretty big to be able to get the job done like that. And we will give props to Ethan Ayers. He actually was, it was kind of a two guys had paired up. It was Ben Mayer and Garcia racing together for first and second. Ethan Ayers was right behind Caleb Gaffera all race long, made that good move in turn number 11, the left-hander, the off-camber corner, took over that position, and a quality third battling his Pearland teammate Caleb Gaffera. Good run for Ethan Ayers to that third spot. Well, that is our race report brought to you by K1 Race Gear. David Cole, we are getting close to the end of this debrief. Let's quickly jump into the EKN Trackside Live race calendar presented by Trinity Karting Group. We're back on the road. I'm actually not going to see you and I aren't going to be at the same race together again until August. I think the Summer Nationals. You're heading on May 18th, 19th, 20th, WK Manufacturers Cup, back to the Pittsburgh International Race Complex. Man Cup getting going again. I head then June 7th, 8th, and 9th to the Texas Pro Kart Challenge, a night race at Denton, Texas. I'm looking forward to getting down to another night race. Always a good time.
That should be fun. And then the weekend after that, I will be back at Mooresville, North Carolina for the second stop of the United States Pro Kart Series. Always enjoy going back to Mooresville and the GoPro Motorplex there. And then we got a little bit of time.
You get a month off.
Yeah, I think we'll be busy, but just we won't be on the road. So you'll be on the road. So
that's true. We got a lot to work. You have to cut grass. I'll still be on the road, but you got to cut grass and take the kids to baseball and soccer practice.
That's right.
July 13th, 14th, 15th, David hits the road again to the WK Manufacturers Cup Series. Concept Haulers Motor Speedway. Change, David, in location, going back to Norway.
Yeah, we just had the Cup Karts North America race was there this weekend. So watching some onboards, it's still that old school track, but should provide some for excitement throughout the weekend.
I like seeing WK Man Cup go back to Norway. You know, they used to have the WK Constructors Championship there when that was the thing back in the late 90s. Just a great old school facility, good long straightaway, a couple of really challenging corners, the big Monza, bank Monza in the back part of the track. I think Man Cup will have a good run there. And we'll cap off this look at our calendar. We're now into the second half of July 20, 21, 22. I finally get to go check out this Amarillo kart circuit, this track that's based off of the Formula One facility in Istanbul, Turkey. The Texas Pro Kart Challenge guys had an awesome race there last year, and I'm hearing that there's going to be guys coming from Colorado, from California, from Arizona. I think that'll be a pretty cool race. It's a very unique facility. It's not used at all. It's a privately owned track, and I'm looking forward to getting out there. David, we are wrapping things up right now. Let's just do a quick 30-second wrap-up. Phoenix, tough weekend for everybody involved, extreme heat. Personally, I'm unbelievably impressed with everybody who soldiered on and were able to perform all weekend long. I think they were challenged. I think it was huge. And for me, the takeaway, much better racecraft than we saw at NOLA.
Much better. And the starts, that's the main concern I think we have moving forward. And with the pushback, it definitely solved that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here. This has been the debrief. David and I took the opportunity to break down the SCUSA Spring Nationals. That series now looking forward to the Summer Nats in August at Newcastle Motorsports Park. Of course, the national number plates up for grabs, championships, and what really is the primary or only real national coast-to-coast karting series we have now in the United States. It was a big weekend. It was hot, as we've said. Racing was great. But again, David and I glad to be back in the office and focus forward on what will be a long season still. Lots of racing to come, and we do want to thank you guys for joining us here on the EKN Radio Network. One quick thing, we have the new app for the EKN Radio Network. You can get that at iTunes or Google Play. Download it to your mobile device. Just one tap, and you are tuned in to the only 24/7 karting radio station in the sport, the EKN Radio Network. Again, on behalf of David Cole, this has been Rob Howden. Thanks for joining us here on the EKN Debrief.